So, I think an interesting problem that all of us face is how to figure out the world, right? What it is that we're going and understanding. And I think an easy solution is for people to sort of suggest that this thing leads to that thing and that you should follow this particular path, right? And that there's sort of clear evidence between this thing and that thing. And in all areas of life, whether it's within the sort of public domain that we all deal with or within the scientific community, there's often this sort of belief that there is this right answer that goes on. And I think once you've sort of seen the evidence that are supporting particular domains, so we realize that, it's not as clear cut as one would sort of suggest. Almost always, right? I think we could sort of universally say that it's not as clear cut. And some of us use this uncertainty that we have as a sort of stall tactic to not do things. For example, climate change. A stall tactic, obviously, is always to just simply put that off. We don't have the evidence. Whether smoking leads to cancer, we can put that off and just say, hey, we don't have the evidence. We can go and do that for an indefinite amount of time. And that is true. We never actually have the evidence of something specifically happening for you in this particular situation. It's never really as clear cut as one would ever believe and think about. And so we often, follow ideas, right? We might follow it in science where there is this more clear-cut idea of what is actually going on. We might follow certain speakers, certain influential people, whether it's sort of in religious groups or whether it is more today in the sort of social media thing that goes on. We sort of think about these things because individuals and groups have the right answer, or it seemingly is the right answer. I think a really interesting question that we sort of need to think about is how do we deal with this uncertainty, right? And the easy approach is to sort of have somebody or something to follow. And that makes a lot of sense to me because it resolves some of this uncertainty that we have. But this idea that there is 5 easy steps or that this particular solution applies to everybody seems not as universal to me. And I think we should sort of take a moment to reflect. Like, most of what we're doing and most of how we sort of grapple with things and the anxieties that we feel and all of that kind of stuff is because we just don't know the bigger, broader world. And even if you are a scientist in a particular domain, we don't understand the bigger, broader world. The way that we draw generalities, the way that we find somewhat of a universal truth, right, is we simplify these particular ideas down so much that they're synthesized to not really reflect the broader reality of how things actually work, right? And we have to do that as scientists. We have to do that as people that are sort of what's called intuitive statisticians, or looking at the world and sort of processing the world. And we're trying to make sense of what's actually going on, and we don't have the right answers. So the easiest thing is to sort of follow individuals and groups that sort of purport to have these right answers. But, a more complicated way of doing things is to reflect we don't know and simply just be okay with the fact that we don't know and we don't understand the broader how things actually work. We have a pretty good understanding of some things, and this knowledge is getting, better and better and better, but we still don't know how a lot of things actually function. And that doesn't give an excuse to simply say we don't know. It doesn't give an excuse to not act in our life, which I think a lot of people use, is to simply just say, hey, we don't know, we need more information, let's not act. But, it is how we deal with this is to move forward with the best possible information that we actually have, and to realize that it's very often going to be the case we're going to make a mistake, and then we have to self-correct. We have to sort of say, hey, this didn't work out at this moment, and we have to self-correct. And if that means completely changing everything in the future, that's fine. But we also have to be okay with the fact that, hey, we just don't know, and we're never going to be clear on how things actually work. I think about the sort of universalities that we talk about in science, and I almost like chuckle inside because I understand that those sort of basic models are so simplified that they don't apply to reality. And I teach all sorts of sort of basic models, and they often don't apply to reality. I think it's interesting, and when I first started to learn about this is when I was in my engineering undergrad. It was a couple of years in. We're talking about the ideal gas law. It turns out the ideal gas law, which is a really nice little short equation, only applies to a very specific situation. And we use this to sort of explain the world in many different ways. And we have to be okay with the fact that we have imperfect information. We're never going to know what the right answer is. It's going to be just a complete mess, but we have to be okay with taking steps forward to some place where we might have a better understanding. And so I just want you to be well aware. If you see individuals, groups that purport that we just have to do these sort of simple steps, or that you know, all you have to do is do your, for scientists, your research papers in these ways, and then it's easy to get accepted and all that kind of stuff. It's not true. And I wish that there was a way to have this message broader, have broader acceptance of this message, but we have to figure this out on our own. And just recognize that we're never going to know the whole world around us, and be okay with that. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye. Oh, by the way, if you noticed, I did not give that many lessons today because I'm stumbling with the fact of explaining how the heck do you actually do anything when you don't know the world. All right, take care.